Creaky Pines Podcast. This is episode number 9. Welcome to February. We have a whole month under our belt in this new year, in this new decade, so how exciting is that? I just want to say welcome to everybody, to new viewers. Thank you for checking out my little corner of the internet, and for returning viewers, thank you so much for returning to share a little bit of time with me and for me to share a little bit of time with you. With that, you can find me on Instagram at Creaky Pines and on Ravelry as Bethany Meeker. We also have a Ravelry group, which is Creaky Pines Podcast. As I say every time, how creative of me, but it's the easiest way to find me there. And all of my show notes are linked down below in, link to my blog. I just heard little footsteps, so the baby's up from her nap already. I shall return. Sorry about that. The little one did not nap as long as I was hoping she would, so she's up there with her papa now. He's still napping, so maybe they'll both nap, at least for the rest of this podcast. But as I was saying, show notes are linked down below, and they're linked to my blog, so that's where you can find all this fun information. Oh my goodness. So we are 1 month into our year-long make-along, our Intentional Mal 2020. How exciting is this? It is like I said, a year-long make-along that focuses on being intentional with your project planning. I discussed this on the previous episode when I first debuted this make-along. Vicious creatures. Oh goodness, what more could interrupt our episode? Let's see here. Being intentional with your project planning, that's where we're at. Like I said, I discussed this more on the previous episode, so a few examples of how to be more intentional. Really, this is just however you feel like interpreting that term and applying it to your knitting or your making practice. So for example, you could be looking at using only stash yarn for the year for your projects and working with what you have. Not necessarily a yarn diet, but just really working through the yarns that you fell in love with and have just been sitting on the shelf. Another example could be if you happen to spin and you plan your project from fleece to yarn to project, just all the way through, however you feel like interpreting the word intentional, everything goes. My biggest one for me personally is to work through my whips, which I will be talking about a little bit because there's some things that have happened these past few weeks with my whips. And really using the stash yarn that I have, because I have quantities of yarn that have been designated for projects that I've had on the back burner for months, maybe in a full year. So I have yarn to use, and I also have patterns in my library, perhaps you do as well, that you fell in love with, but you just haven't knitted up or sewn, or whatever craftiness you happen to partake in. So I have also decided with this month with this year-long knit-along to do 4 separate finished object threads, one for each quarter, so that way it's a bit more organized, I guess. I've never done this before, so this is very exciting for all of us. And that way I can do 4 different giveaways throughout the year instead of doing all this work and waiting all year for some prizes. We'll do quarterly prizes. So I will have that out either by the time this video is up or in the very near future. And the hashtag we are using for this is hashtag intentional mal, M-A-L, 2020. So I really hope you would like to join us on this fun and exciting journey of being intentional with our practices. So, with that being said, I have a finished object to share with you. And I am so excited about this because my ears are finally warm now from the Wisconsin wind. So, I have finished my Musselburgh hat, or Musselburgh, Burr or Berg, I can't tell if the GH is soft or hard, by Isolde Teague. And the construction of this hat was so much fun. This pattern is based or inspired by a World War II or World War I, one of the Great World Wars, fatigue hat. And they used this hat in so many ways, and one of them was like you can wear it as a scarf because of how it's constructed. So how it's done is you essentially have a double layer of fabric and you stuff it within each self, and so when you turn up the cuff here, you get 4 layers over your ears, and it's so warm and it's so cozy. And I have a little pom-pom on the top of it. But what was really fun about this project is I actually used up every single bit of the Prairie Spun DK in red cedar. Every single bit of it. And so that meant on the inside, I had to dive into my scraps. So I was very excited about that because I felt so economical with my yarn. And I'm actually very excited to talk about this yarn. I know it's a non-superwash. It's a sport weight, and I can't remember the name of it or the color of it. I know I have the tag somewhere. It's in projects, but this will be the 3rd project that this yarn has been incorporated into. This yarn was originally for my, not my Soldotna, though it's in the Soldotna, for my Demyaka flea cardigan, Demyaka Lopa flea cardigan, the colorwork cardigan that was not to be for me. But this was originally supposed to be the main color, main contrast color, but when I did the swatch, I actually preferred it with the teal, so I had 3 skeins of this, and I still have a bit left. So I'm very excited to see it in a 3rd project along with the Demyaka Lopa and in my Soldotna as well. So I feel very happy that I'm able to use up this yarn for many projects, and I'm sure I will continue to use up every single scrap because it really is such a fun color. And it's got little bits of like a tweediness, like a purpley tweed. I don't know if you can really see it that well, but it's there. And the other thing I wanted to talk about with this hat, besides how cozy and amazing and how scrappy it turned out to be, is about this pom-pom. So this is an upcycled or a recycled fox fur pom-pom. Now, I know in our community we have been super excited for faux fur pom-poms, for vegan pom-poms, and I'm excited about those as well. But these came across in my local yarn store, and these are upcycled by a fellow creator here in my new small town. So another local artist, which is fantastic. And the story behind these is that she received, her name's Anne, from Oma Designs. So I'll have all of her information up here as well. But she upcycled these from somebody who dealt with who had a whole stack of furs, and they did stuff with fur and leather and all that good stuff. But she decided to upcycle the real fur, which I am ethically okay with, because otherwise the furs of the animals that have been dead for who knows how long, let me rephrase this. At least we're not creating new furs. We're recycling what has already been done in the past. And so I'm very excited to be able to help support a local maker. And I'm excited to recycle this fur pom-pom. And it's very soft. But anyway, I'm sure we will get a lot of comments about vegan fur, faux fur, real fur, all of that. I understand, but I'm very excited about this. And how it's done is amazing, because you're able to, it's not a snap pom-pom like a lot of people are having. Instead, it's attached to a button that you saw on the inside, and it has these two bands that come through your knitting, and it crisscrosses over, and it's so secure. It's so secure. But anyway, this is my second finished object of the year, and it's the second hat of the year. So I've been on a hat craze lately, so I'm very, very excited about this. So now I can take nice long walks with the little one. Okay. There's a lot of chit chat over a hat. So let me get some coffee. And to help, fight away the afternoon blues. Alright, so I have 2 works in progress that I would like to share with you today. And the first one has a bit of a story behind it, because you originally saw the yarn at least, as something else. So originally, this was the northeasterly blanket that I was making with all of my Advent minis that I received that I spoiled myself with for 2019 Christmas. And I loved the look of the pattern. I'm sure I will probably discuss this again in a different segment, but I loved the look of the chevrons of the northeasterly, and it is absolutely darling. Those people who have done it, hats off to you. It's amazing. And this yarn was knitting up so beautifully, but I was not enjoying the process of knitting it. That's nothing to say against the pattern. The pattern is written beautifully and it's beautifully executed and beautiful everywhere. But for me, it wasn't the easy knitting that I was looking for in this type of a project. That's pesky make one right. Always gets me. And with such tiny needles. So instead, I decided that the granny stripe blanket, which is crocheted, which I don't crochet until now, has grown on me after seeing everybody else's renditions of it. And so I took up the one hook that I own, and I learned how to chain and how to crochet, and I am completely addicted. My goal originally was to do 2 mini skeins a month. That way I had everything done for the start of 2020's Advent Mini, and that way maybe I can do that again next year. I might be speeding up that process a little bit with how excited I am over this blanket. So here's where I am at. Now, I know a lot of people do 1 or 2 stripes of the yarn, but I wanted to use every single bit of those Advent minis, and I'm usually getting like 2.5 to almost 3 rows of them. So I'm very excited. And these Advent minis are from Molly of Homespun House, and it's just such fun colors. I found this really exciting bright red, pink, and purple and green. It's so much fun. And I usually don't do a whole lot of color in my wardrobe and my decor, except for, snow pops. So having this blanket, it's like color overload for me. And I think I talk about it every time I talk about these minis, but it's just so much fun. It's so much color. And I think the hardest part for me when it came to learning this, how to crochet, was what to do with my left hand, because it is absolutely useless. The hardest part was trying to figure out how to hold tension with my left hand, because I do everything with my right when I'm knitting and just, normal daily stuff as a right-handed individual. But I finally got it down, and I feel like I'm whipping through this, and I'm just really, really enjoying this crochet project. So I'm very excited to have a blanket, and I'm sure I will update you on the progress of that. So this is, and I know there's the term for the pattern. I know there's somebody who did a free pattern. I'll have it up here. But honestly, I just found YouTube tutorials, and they showed me how to do it as well. So I followed YouTube tutorials more than I actually read an actual pattern for it. So yeah. Alright, so granny striped blanket, here we go. Eventually this will go here. Alright, and it is currently at this size, living in my little narwhal bag. And this is from Kitchen Counter Crafter. So this bag is so cute. Oh, look at those little narwhals. Unicorns of the sea. Alright, so let me get this put away without losing my hook. Oh, which, by the way, my husband stepped on it and broke the hook. And we thought, because I didn't really look that closely, I know this is kind of a side tangent, I thought he broke the actual hook part of the hook off, but he didn't. He just broke off the back end. So I was happy because I didn't have to buy a new hook. Again, more economical stuff, being frugal, I guess. And so I just had him repair it with some epoxy or wood glue, whatever he happened to use to stick it back together, and it's wonderful. So fun side tangent there. Okay. This is the most I've drunk on a podcast. Alright, the other whip that I have going is actually a test knit for a lovely friend of mine that I met up here in Wisconsin. Her name is Kim. She's absolutely darling. And she is in the process of putting together this lovely little pattern for a stuffed bunny. And it's so cute. She's so excited about it, and the story behind it is absolutely amazing. It's all listed out in her pattern, so I don't want to give too much away. But I am in the start of making a little bunny for Emma, for my little one. And here is the start. And there's of course fun story behind behind this yarn as well. So all of the yarn that I'm using is scraps from, or leftover yarn, because they are more than just scraps, leftover yarn from previous projects of mine. And you can see here for the main body of the bunny, I am using a yarn that I used for Emma's hat that I made her. Of course, I'm blanking on all the names, but I have it written down for show. Well, I will have it written down for show notes and for other projects. And I'm holding it double with the Rowan Kid Silk Haze. Rowan Silk Haze mohair, the silver one that I used for my no frills sweater. So I'm using that so that way the bunny does have a little bit of fluff to it. This lovely orangey color, wonder where that came from, is leftovers from my shawl that I'm wearing today. I forgot to mention I am wearing my very own design, recently released back in January, the Shopkeeper shawl, a fun popcorny or bobble triangular shawl with tassels. Oh, self-promotion, how I loathe thee. So I have that as a leftover going in here, and the other yarn that I'm using for the bunny's hat and its wee little scarf is this lovely purple from something else I just frogged recently. So I thought that would be fun because in the speckles of this yarn, which you can see right here without the mohair really does give it a nice gray tint. You can see the speckles of like the purples and the yellows and the dark oranges, which is what I'm playing off with the rest of this little mini and with this. So there we go. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to do lovely pictures and a lovely, comments about the pattern for Kim. So I'm very excited. I don't know when she is releasing the pattern, but I'm very excited to partake and make a little bunny. So excited. Oh, and with it, she shows you how to make a little booklet. I actually watched the video today and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, how to make a little booklet for the bunny, so you can tell a little story, or with your little human you can write a story together about your bunny. So it's so sweet. So that is my other whip. I just casted it on last night and it is knitting up fairly quickly with the little bit of time I've spent on it, and I can't wait to finish this bunny for Emma. So that is all the whips that I have for you today. Let's see here. With me finishing 2 objects so far this year, I have also frogged 2 objects. And one of them, like I said, is the northeasterly blanket, which wasn't much to rip back as this other project. But the northeasterly is by Skinanigans, and like I said, I was using Advent Mini, looking at notes, and I originally cast that on back in December, so I didn't get very far with it before I realized I wasn't in love with it, so which is totally fine. And the other object or project that I ripped back, I had on the needle since January of last year, and that is was my Winterberry Vest by Emily Foden in her Knits About Winter book that came out in 2018, at the end of 2018. And it is a beautiful pattern. The texture is so beautiful for the vest, but I wasn't in love with it anymore, and I didn't think I would actually wear it in my wardrobe as it stands now. Let's see here. I know I cast it on. It was an angry cast on, I'm not gonna lie. I was rebelling against the cardigan that didn't fit because of the sleeves and across the chest area. So the solution to that in my mind at that time was to cast on something that didn't have sleeves. Because who needs sleeves to fit when there are none? That was my logic. But yeah, I think I probably cast on a size too big as it was. It's a bottom-up construction, and at this point, I've never completed anything that was bottom-up, and that was my second one I started, and I didn't finish it. I've learned I'm not a fan of the bottom-up construction, the separating of the front and back. It's just give me a nice top-down, and I'll be happy. So I have a whole sweater's quantity worth of yarn to do something with this year, and I don't know if I want to say because I don't have any definite plans for it, but I don't want to say what I've been kind of tossing around in my mind yet, because I don't know what will happen if I actually get to that point, and I don't want to set up any expectations. I don't want to have any expectations for this yarn yet. So when it happens, whatever it happens to be, it'll be a surprise for all of us. So I just wanted to say that it's okay to be afraid of ripping back something that you worked so hard and so long on. I spent hours on those projects, and it did hurt a little to start pulling that yarn, to start ripping it out. But then you just have to sit back and think, okay, I get to use this yarn all over again. This yarn was such a pleasure to work with. Now I get to use it again. From that Winterberry project, I would never have gotten this done, because it's how I learned how to do bobbles. It was my first time doing bobble stitches in the front and back panel of the vest, and without that instruction, I would never have gotten this shawl done. So I have gained a lot from that project, just as you have gained a lot from whatever projects you may have languishing on the needles, and probably just need to think back and start over with something else that makes you happy, that gives you that passion for your yarn. I'm a bit of a motivational speaker today. It's okay. That's all I want to say is it's okay to do that. It's nothing, you don't need to beat yourself up over it. Just embrace it. Start a new adventure with it. Okay. Oh, let's see here. Another observational note today. So a lot of the podcasts I have been watching for the new 2020, a lot of people have also been taking on the idea of really being more intentional with their projects, or ripping back projects, or trying to work through stash, maybe not buy as much yarn this year. So I'm wondering if it's like an overall theme for 2020 is just to kind of reflect, slow down a bit, enjoy the knitting or the making or whatever you happen to be working on. And I just wanted to make that general observation for you today. So, with that being said, I would like to move on to Petit Plaisir. So, I absolutely love listening to audio podcasts. I enjoy audiobooks as well. I love my YouTube videos to watch, but I really like just having an audio going on, something a bit shorter than a book that can go on for hours, or while I'm knitting, or while I'm sewing, or even while I'm just, cleaning the house. It's always nice to have that. And so I just wanted to share with you the 5, well, I have a lot more than just 5, but some of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to as of late. Let's see here. So first one is one that's new to me, that's actually been out for a couple years, is Bonnets at Dawn. So in this first season, I don't know what's going on in the other seasons, these two lovely ladies, Hannah and Laura, perhaps, they compare and contrast Jane Austen and her works to the Bronte sisters. I love Jane Austen. I read almost through Wuthering Heights by one of the Bronte sisters. So it's just kind of fun listening to them go back and forth on how they compare and contrast. They're really delving into like the characters, into the backgrounds of these women, of these writers. So it's great. It's great. The other one is The Curious Handmaid. So this is a podcast put on by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmaid. And so she just does a weekly update on what's going on with her life, what patterns she's doing, just a nice audio knitting podcast. And it's really nice to listen to her, especially since I love her sock patterns. Number 3 is Lore, and that is put on by Aaron Minky. So he goes in and tells these incredible stories about real events, folk tales, actual lore, And it's just a range of things. You never know what you're going to get with him, but how he tells his story, how he organizes it, how he has the piano music going on, it's just fantastic. And I've been listening to this for years now. Years. A rather new podcast is the Scared to Death podcast by Dan and Lindsay Cummings. So Dan Cummings is a comedian, and he has another podcast called called Time Suck with Dan Cummings. So he delves into just random topics and does a whole hour to 2 hour ordeal on them. Scared to Death is about Lindsay, Dan's wife, and Dan trying to scare the crap out of each other with these supposedly true stories. They're not all ghost stories. There's alien abductions and just weird, mysterious happenings, and it scares me. But I keep going back for more. It comes out at midnight on Tuesdays, so I listen to it on Wednesdays. I usually listen to it on my way over to my knit night, so I get about half the podcast done there, and then driving back in the dark to finish out the rest of that episode. And it scares me, and especially when I'm trying to walk into the house from the garage and it's dark, and what they've been talking about just kind of, it's in the back of your mind. You're like, oh my gosh, what's out there? And but I love it. Scared to Death by Dan Cummings and Lindsay Cummings, and it's not really a child-friendly podcast, so don't listen with young ears around, unless that's the culture that you're bringing them up in, then so be it. Who am I to tell you to raise your child? And the fifth one is the Simple Sophisticate, put on by Shannon Abels. I've been listening to her podcast for years. She does a blog as well, and she has 2 books that she has out, and she's just a pleasure to listen to. She just talks more. Her topics range widely, so she does a lot of Francophile episodes for those who love France like I do, or the French culture, to doing capsule wardrobes, to just how to live a simple yet luxurious life. And I am all about that. So that is my petite plaisir, is those 5 podcasts for you to check out if you wish. If not, I would love to know what kind of podcasts you enjoy listening to or watching. I'm all for podcasts. So I believe that is all that I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you guys